Hello and welcome to Faithfully Stamping with Jennifer Helm. I am Jennifer Helm, the Faithful Stamper, and I'm so thankful that you popped in for my video today. Today I'm going to show you a very simple technique that makes a very pretty card with very few supplies. This uses cardstock and designer series paper, and if you're a paper hoarder like me, this is a great way to use up some of your designer series paper, or DSP as we call it in Stampin' Up land. So this technique just shows you how to take one piece of designer series paper and showcase both sides of it. So let's go ahead and get started. To begin, you will need a piece of cardstock that will serve as your card base. It is 8.5 inches long by 5.5 inches tall, and you're going to want to score it at 4 1/4 right down the middle. You fold it in half, and this becomes your card base. Next, you will want a piece of coordinating cardstock. I'm using Cajun Craze for my card base and Early Espresso for the first layer of my card. And I'm going to adhere this to my card using my Stampin' Seal Plus. This is my favorite adhesive right now. It's a very strong hold and it's great for all kinds of things, cards as well as 3D projects. So this layer goes on first, and you're just going to center that and glue it down. The next thing you're going to need is a piece of cardstock that is 5 inches tall by 3 3/4 inches wide. You're going to want either Whisper White or Very Vanilla for this, and you're going to want a piece of designer series paper or printed paper that is the same size, 5 inches tall by 3 3/4 inches wide. And you're going to do one simple thing to this piece of designer series paper. You will need either a paper trimmer or scissors and a ruler, because the quick simple step is you're going to take your paper and you want to make sure you have the orientation correct with the pattern running up and down. I'm going to turn it to the left and lay it on my paper trimmer at 2.5 inches. So at the midway point, and then I'm just going to take my scoring blade, or my trimming blade. My scoring blade's up top because I want to actually cut this, and I'm just going to run it down to the 2-inch mark. Move my paper trimmer out of the way. And so I just have one slit here in my piece of designer series paper. So what I'm going to do with this now is just fold the designer series paper back from that slit to the corner. This will be the trickiest thing you do all day, I promise. Some people probably get technical with a ruler and things like that. I haven't bothered with that. I've just tried to eyeball it. Some come out better than others, and that's okay. It doesn't really have to be perfect because we're going to hide the middle. So you want to kind of focus on your corners, getting your corner fold right. This one came out pretty well. But when we assemble the card, we're going to hide this part, so if this isn't perfect, it's okay. Next, what I do is I'm going to want to stamp a small sentiment here on my piece of Whisper White or Very Vanilla cardstock. I'm using Very Vanilla because it coordinates better with this particular designer series paper. But you'll notice I haven't glued this down yet, because if I make a mistake here, I can turn it over and try again without having to ruin the whole card or start completely over. So the stamp sets I'm going to use today, on the front I'm going to use the Gather Together stamp set. I'm a big fan of autumn, and so I love the leaves and the pumpkins, as well as the sentiments in this set. And then on the inside, I'm going to use one of these sentiments, but I'm also going to tie in the Happy Thanksgiving from Banner Year. This stamp set is great because it brings in all the holidays in one stamp set, with some cute little accents too. Now, I'm going to use Early Espresso ink to stamp my sentiment. And the stamps I'm going to use are photopolymer, so they're clear. So when I'm stamping with my photopolymer stamp sets, I need a little extra cushion because there's none built in on this cling stamp. So I'm going to line up my paper, and I have my Stampin' Pierce mat underneath to give me that extra cushion. It's a foam mat. You can use a thin piece of foam too. And so I'm just going to tap, tap, tap in my ink pad. I can tell at a glance that I've got enough ink, and if I don't think I have enough ink, I can tap, tap, tap again. Just don't do CPR on your stamps. Don't smush them down into your ink pad. Then you'll get ink on the stamp to block your fingers and paper and everywhere else too. Press down 1, 2, 3, light pressure. Again, no CPR, no chest compressions on your stamp. And there we go. And since I got a good impression, I don't have to worry about restamping. If I had made a mistake, I could have flipped this around and tried again, and if that didn't work, I could have flipped it over. So there are 2 sides to every piece of cardstock, at least when it's a nice neutral color. I'm going to move that aside for just a moment, and now I am ready to assemble this piece. So back to my Stampin' Seal Plus, my adhesive. I like to make sure I get enough that the panels won't go anywhere. So this one I'm going to center on top of the other layer I've already glued to the card front. And then for this layer, it's 2 steps. First of all, I'm going to turn it over to the back. This is the side I want to glue down. And again with the adhesive. Probably going to go a little heavier handed here just to make sure this piece of paper stays where I want it to. Plus you've got more edges here. So I always run some glue along the edges. Try not to do what I do and glue your paper to your mat. And I'm just making sure I don't have any overhanging here. And now what I'm going to do is line this up, since this piece of Designer Series paper is exactly the same size as my Whisper White panel, or Very Vanilla panel. I'm just going to lay it right over to the top and match the corners before I press that down. So there's the first step. And if you have a little adhesive, if you've got an adhesive eraser, you can use that, or just kind of rub it with your fingers. Now, I want to do something with my flaps here. I don't want them flapping in the wind. So I just put a little adhesive on the underside of these flaps. Now if you wanted, you could kind of give them a little bubble, curl them a little before you press them down. I tend to have mine lay flat though. So there we go. And that looks cute, but it needs just a little something else. So I have 2 stitch circle die cuts that I previously cut, one in Early Espresso and one in Crumb Cake. So again, I'm going to bring over my Stampin' Pierce mat, and I'm going to put the pumpkin image from the Gather Together set right in the middle of my stitch circle. There we go. And while I have that out, I like to have a design of some kind on my envelope, whether it is a stamp or some matching Designer Series paper. So for this, I'm just going to use the matching stamp image. And I'll set my envelope aside, and we'll have just one little bit of stamping in a moment. But to finish, I'm going to take these 2 stitch circles and just layer them together with my adhesive. And now I'm going to attach this with dimensionals. So I've got some mini dimensionals here, so I'm going to put 4 on. You want to make sure that your sentiment pieces are sturdy. They're not going to collapse on one end or the other. You also don't want them falling off your project. Ooh. Gotta love live video, right? And now I'm just going to attach this right to the front. You definitely don't want to go too large with your shape here, and I tend towards circles, but you could definitely experiment a little bit. And there we go. There's the front of my card. So one last thing to finish it off. I need an insert for the inside. If I had used a lighter colored cardstock, I could have stamped directly in the card, but this Cajun Craze is a little dark. So I'm just going to add a very vanilla insert. And so I want to use one of the sentiments from the Gather Together set. It says, "May the season bring you smiles and love that will last all year." And then I wanted to add Happy Thanksgiving. And this is a beautiful card to give to someone if you're visiting their house on Thanksgiving. Close my ink pad so I don't have any disasters. And then last step, a little adhesive here and glue it inside the card. And I have a quick and simple card that helps me use up some of my scraps of designer series paper, but yet is a beautiful card that makes a statement. So there we go. And now I have just a few more samples to show you. I gave you a sneak peek at the beginning of this card. Along the same lines, a nice fall harvest card, just with a different design on the front. One more autumn card, if it will cooperate. This is our Gilded Autumn Designer Series paper, and I love all things fall. And this one, I realized after I cut the paper, I thought I cut it the right way, but most of my acorns were upside down. So I just inverted the paper and mirrored the design on the other side. So you'll see you do have some play with the design. And this doesn't just have to be a card for fall. I made this card, which is a great birthday card, and I kept this one simple and let the paper speak for itself. And I added a strip of the Designer Series paper that matches the front to accent the inside. Christmas is coming, so I designed a Christmas card that was simple and easy. And instead of a stamped image directly on the circles, I added a stamped Christmas tree from our Perfectly Plaid set. And you could embellish these with jewels, a little bling if you like. And this card I thought was particularly cute. When I was assembling the card, I realized the design, before you put the sentiment on the front, sort of looks like a button-down shirt. So that's what I did with this one. Rather than stamp an image here at the top, I just left it blank. And this way it looks like a shirt collar, and I added some embellishments to serve as buttons. And then this cute little Believe stamps. So it just shows you have a little room to play with the stamp sets. And then I also wanted to show you that you can take the same idea, but position it just a little differently. This card, the sentiment is more in the center, and this card is more towards the left edge of the card. And you can see I just reversed the paper on each card to show you that you have a lot of possibilities to play with this card. So thank you so much for joining me today at Faithfully Stampin' with Jennifer Helm. If you need any Stampin' Up! Supplies, please be sure to visit my website, thefaithfulstamper.stampinup.net. Thank you so much, and I hope you'll join me again soon. Happy crafting!